Everybody recognized the same problem, and then we went and fixed it. That's the way it works. But you first have to understand you're all looking at the same problem. And I feel as though these recent disasters, everything from the pandemic to the energy problems, etc., are sort of opening up some visibility into all these things. And it's a new visibility, and maybe that gets us on the same page and gets enough ingenuity going to solve things. Yeah, I think we're in the golden age. But nobody wanted to hear the idea that would reduce our profits. That's it. It would just reduce our profits. That's all it would do for the company. Now, for the customer, it would be terrific. But we wouldn't even have that discussion because we liked having built a trap so that people would fall into it and we would make money. And that actually happened behind closed doors. That was an actual conversation in a real company. The golden age, you said it was coming. We might be pretty close to the golden age. I'll check my stocks, but stocks during the Biden era had been good so far. Let's see what it looks like at the moment. Yeah, they're just bouncing around. So at the moment, stocks are down a little bit. Bitcoin is at a new high. The retail sales are up. We have peaked in coronavirus and it's going down. We've probably learned a ton about how to handle our next pandemic. We are preparing to colonize space. Thank you, Elon Musk. And I believe that we have completely begun to rethink everything from our education system in a way we never would have before. The worst situation would have been our school system continued on the way it was. That would have been the Holocaust. Okay, I won't use the Holocaust. I'll take that back. That would have been the disaster. But having to rethink it, losing a year, as expensive as this is in the lives of our children and their parents, as expensive as it is in every emotional and physical and economic way, we probably had to. We probably had to break the system before we could re-engineer it. Likewise, the idea of work has completely changed. We've now accepted the idea of direct payments to people who don't have jobs, universal basic income. We've basically accepted that. You know, we accepted it under the pandemic, but now it's sort of in our minds and it would be easier to implement in the future. And working at home without the commute is obviously big. Seeing all kinds of movement toward figuring out how to make it less expensive to have housing. I think that as bad as these disasters are with the Texas power grid, etc., that these all create the good things. When you look at Elon Musk making a $100 million prize available for whoever builds the best carbon capture, that's really big. That's really big. Now, that doesn't mean that's what's going to solve climate change, if you even believe there's something to solve. But it is part of a tapestry of good things happening in that realm. And I think that we're all getting a lot smarter about green energy versus non. You may have heard, I think I mentioned it, that the Trump administration in December, just before they were out of power, passed through a bill that included money to develop our fusion technology. So instead of nuclear fission, which we have, but it has some issues, nuclear fusion would be sort of nearly unlimited, low-cost energy. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened in the last year or so that are really big, really big. And even though they look bad, because they are, our energy problems or pandemic, that's bad. But they've opened a doorway on each of those topics in which we can see them more clearly for the first time. And when humans, and I'm going to say Americans, with apologies to people around the world who are watching this live stream, I do have a bias toward the American, let's say, spirit. Now, I don't have a lot of knowledge about the spirit in other countries, so maybe somebody's got a better one. But the American spirit, if you will, is if we can understand the problem, we can fix it. It's not understanding the problem is where we get in trouble. It's like, are we supposed to be working on this climate change? Is it really a problem? I'm not sure. Should we fix immigration or should we just open the gates? If you can't agree on what the problem is, then you're going to have trouble fixing it. But when Americans agree, let's say the year 2000 bug, I like to use that example all the time. Nobody in the world wanted the year 2000 bug to destroy computers around the world and plunge us into a depression. Nobody wanted that. We had just this specific problem. You got to fix the old code that won't recognize when the year turns 2000. Everybody recognized the same problem, and then we went and fixed it. That's the way it works. But you first have to understand you're all looking at the same problem. And I feel as though these recent disasters, everything from the pandemic to the energy problems, etc., are sort of opening up some visibility into all these things. And it's a new visibility, and maybe that gets us on the same page and gets enough ingenuity going to solve things. Yeah, I think we're in the golden age. I do. Do you realize that at least in the United States, by the way, correct me if this is wrong, we had our entire food distribution system attacked in a way we've never seen anything attacked. I'm talking like Trump now, in a way we've never seen before. Yeah, we've seen things before. So remove the hyperbole, I didn't need it. And how did we respond? There are a lot of, and by the way, I've been meaning to do this. I would like to directly and explicitly thank everybody who worked in any part of the food distribution network, from farmer to everybody who gets the food to your plate. All the people working on that, especially the meat packing plants, etc., you guys are heroes. Because you guys, and women, of course, you didn't get to take time off. You didn't get to work at home. You had to produce the food to keep us alive. And how'd they do? How'd they do? Nailed it. Absolutely frickin' nailed it. Now, lots of problems. Things didn't work perfectly, but of course it was a pandemic. But correct me if I'm wrong. Give me a fact check on this. 0 people starved because of the pandemic in the United States. Can somebody give me a fact check on that? I think that's true. I think it's true that 0 people starved. Now, a lot of people had a lot of trouble, still do. I'm not minimizing the amount of pain and suffering that's happening. But nobody starved. I mean, think about that. And by the way, in hindsight, it doesn't look as impressive, but in the beginning, we didn't know if we were going to starve. We didn't know. And the food service people, from farmers on, they pulled it off. So here's another example. There was nobody in America who wanted anybody to starve, right? We were all on exactly the same side. We've got this big food problem. We need to solve this, and then we did. And that's typical of what happens certainly in this country, but we saw it all around the world, is that if the problem is agreed on, you can solve it. It's only when you don't agree that you got a problem. Have you noticed that iPhones are made to break? Do you ever wonder about that? You take on a brand new iPhone, and it really looks good. I mean, the design is great, but it's slippery. It's like they made it out of wet soap or something. It's like zoop, flips out of your hand. And the only way you can actually have a phone that's not guaranteed to be cracked and broken is to put an ugly case on it. Now, there's no such thing as a good-looking phone case, right? So Apple gets it both ways. They claim that they have, a good design, and it's something they can show in their commercials, and it looks great. I mean, just look at that thing. That's a good-looking phone. But you can't use that phone. It's the greatest mind fuck that you think you're buying a well-designed product, but you can't possibly use it. I mean, I know some people use it without a case, and I hear about the people, I've had my phone 3 years, I've never cracked it. Okay, that's not typical. Most people drop their phone 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, I do. Never broke one yet, because I'll never use a phone with one hand without a case. So that's my rule. Would you like to hear the rule again? Never use your iPhone with only one hand unless it has a case on it. So if before I put a case on it, I get a new phone, let's say an upgrade, I will only hold it with 2 hands. Period. I just will never use one hand. I'll never do this. And I've never lost a phone. The other thing I'll never do, I will never use my phone over a body of water. How many phones have you replaced in your family because somebody used their phone in the pool or in the bathtub? Yeah, or in the beach. Never, in any circumstance, will this phone be directly above a body of water. How many phones have I lost because I dropped them in bodies of water? 0. How many have my various family members lost because they dropped them in bodies of water? A lot. That's a big number, right? So if you're wondering if Apple makes them intentionally slippery so they'll break, I would say probably yes. Because how hard would it be to put some non-stick surface on it? How hard would it be to make it not breakable? Not hard, right? How hard would it be to make this not breakable? They would just have to put a screen protector on it when it ships. It would be the easiest thing in the world. There's no way it's unintentional. When I worked with a phone company, a local phone company years ago, and I would get to see the discussions that happened, within the company, obviously. And one of the discussions was about one of our most profitable lines of business, which we called it a line of business, was late payment on your phone bill. Because people would be penalized a fee for being late on their phone bill. But since everybody needs a phone, or at least in those days you needed a landline phone, you were going to pay eventually. Because even if you moved and tried to get new phone service, you couldn't do it until you paid your old late fee. So it was this lock on people that if they paid late, they would have to pay the late fee or never have phone service in the modern world. So what happened, do you think, when I brought up the idea of maybe making it easier for people to pay on time so that the customers would not be inconvenienced by a late fee, we would get our money on time, and then everything would work the way it's supposed to work? What do you think they said about that? Shut up. Shut up. Not really shut up. But nobody wanted to hear the idea that would reduce our profits. That's it. It would just reduce our profits. That's all it would do for the company. Now, for the customer, it would be terrific. But we wouldn't even have that discussion. Because we liked having built a trap so that people would fall into it and we would make money. And that actually happened behind closed doors. That was an actual conversation in a real company about screwing the fucking customers because it was easy, and it was really profitable. That's real. Now, you tell me that Apple has not had conversations behind closed doors about fixing their easily breakable phone? Of course they have. Do you think there's no engineer who could figure out how to make these phones to not break so easily? Of course they have those engineers. Of course. They just prefer it this way for whatever reason.